Awesome. All right, yeah, so first of all, thanks everyone for coming in. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Hakan. I lead the solution architecture team here at North Americas. So I work with most of our large enterprise customers, like making sure they get onboarded into the platform and they get the best experience out of the platform. So I kind of want to share some best practices that I've seen in the industry. We work with a lot of different industries. I chose e-commerce for today, but again, I think what I'm going to share today does apply to every industry, and I kind of wanted to focus on something a bit more specific. What I see these days is the concept of agents, that's definitely the year of agents, but the multimodal agent is becoming very common. So I kind of want to talk about how you can actually leverage Arize AX to kind of build an agent from scratch and then iterate on it as fast as you can, in a matter of minutes. That's kind of what I want to focus. So let's get started. So before we dive into the topic, I kind of want to first explain what are some different pains or challenges that I see across all the AI teams I work with, right? And I would kind of categorize in terms of building agents, these three specific pains, right? Because at the end, building an agent, it's not that easy, right? You can vibe code yourself and build something to do a typical demo, but if you actually want to take it into production, you kind of need to have a set of foundational aspects in order to be able to iterate on your application. So what I see across most AI teams is that there's actually no centralized place to track their data, right? Most of the teams are stuck in spreadsheets, they have some inputs, outputs, some model outputs, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on, across hundreds of spreadsheets, and it makes it hard to actually track everything at one place. And another very important issue that I see is that a lot of non-technical stakeholders want to be involved in the process from the starting point, right? So they want to include product managers, maybe business stakeholders, execs into this process of could be prompting, could be picking models, reviewing the responses, right? So it's hard to include those people as well. And all of these challenges combined just makes your process really slow and hard to iterate, right? Let's say you want to build a prompt, change a prompt, pick a new model, right? A new large language model comes every day, right? Like Gemini 2.5 or Claude 4, right? All the stuff, you need to have a way to easily understand if I change from this model to something else, what happens, right? So that's kind of what I want to focus on. And in terms of actually kind of tackling these challenges, I usually see mainly three buckets that every AI team needs to have in place before they even get started with building an agent. And the first one is observability, right? So I think Shar would explain great here, how do you actually gain visibility into your application in terms of what's happening behind the scenes. And the second one is the evaluation piece, how do you actually quantify the quality of responses. And then the third one is the experimentation and improvement, how do you actually do some rapid prototyping on your agent, easily test a few changes, and then maybe ship it to production, right? And the interesting thing about these buckets is you actually, all of these are dependent on each other, so you cannot actually have observability without having evaluation, right? You cannot do experimentation without having both observability and evaluation. So you kind of need to have all these three in place in order to even just build an agent with a good foundation. So what I'm going to do today is again, I just want to pick a use case that I see in the industry. And again, in a matter of minutes using Arize AX, I actually want to build the agent itself and iterate on it for the e-commerce industry. And the use case we're going to focus on will be an automated customer support via a chat interface. So again, wanted to do something very simple. Let's say there's a user logged into Amazon or some other website, right? Ask a question, and then maybe upload a set of images, right, to make it multimodal. And then it needs to help the user achieve his or her desired outcome, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to leverage Arize AX in order to build out this prompt from scratch, test the agent on a few examples, evaluate the output, and then have a set of foundations so that you can actually do some rapid prototyping on this agent. So again, I think this is the main best practice I want to share, how we even get started with building an agent, right? Again, vibe coding is not the best practice I would recommend because you need to have some sort of foundations even before you start vibe coding. That's definitely something to do good, but this is kind of what I see most successful AI teams do these days, right? So the first thing is you kind of come up with a very quick architecture design of the agent. How should the agent look like as it gets built, right? Once you have the architecture in place, you kind of break down individual agent steps, right? So maybe there's a router agent. Maybe there's a research agent. maybe there is some other agent, right? So you really need to understand what each step is in your agent so that you can actually build them out one by one. And then after you have done that, all you have to do is like for each step, you build a set of initial questions as agent input. This is what we call like a minimal testing data set. You can add ground truth if you want, like what should be the perfect response to that question, let's say. And then you start building out your prompt, right, for that specific step. And then you should have an evaluator in place so that you can actually do this concept called evaluation-driven development, right? So for those of you who work in software, there's this concept of like TDD, right? Test-driven development, where you actually write the tests before you write the code, right? This is actually very, very similar. You actually do evaluation-driven development where you have these evals in place before you even touch a keyboard, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to share today. And we're going to run these prompts on a data set and evaluate the outputs. So again, wanted to come up with something relatively common in the industry today. So it's kind of like an automated support agent architecture, right? So what we have here, we have a customer input. Let's say it also has some images, right? And then the first step is you have a supervisor. Some people call this router, depending on what you use. And then it picks which path to go with, right? Could be a product comparison, track package, damaged product, wrong product, right? Could be anything else. And then based on the path, like maybe it calls an LLM, it calls an internal API call, maybe it's just application code, right? So it kind of gives you a way of like which path to take, right? So this is kind of our architecture. What we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on the first step, right? So I'm breaking down my agent into individual steps. And what we're gonna focus on today is, which is honestly the most important one, is the router, right? Is it gonna pick the best path to go with based on the customer input and images, right? So how do we build this? From scratch, leveraging Arize AX. So the first step is to, again, as I talked about, is to build a minimal testing data set, right? So again, the idea is to have, it could be 5 examples, could be 10 examples, doesn't matter, but to have some inputs to your agent, right? In this case, I have some user questions. Let's say I have some images that I pulled online, and then you can have a ground truth if you want, right? You can also just add the ground truth in Arize AX, like by using our annotations. Like maybe you want some business stakeholder to come in. Let me see. This one is a bit. Okay, I guess we go with it. Okay, some stuff is missing, but I think that should be okay. Okay, so then you build a minimal testing data set on top of this to kind of have it, right? So what I have is simple. 5 examples, some set of images, and then a ground truth, right? So then what you can do is like you can actually upload this data set into Arize AX, right? So on the Arize platform, you simply go to datasets. You can upload it as a CSV. You can upload it via code, right? I'm just going to upload as a CSV here. I'm going to pick my data set, right, which I just showed you. And then here, right, so I have my user query, the images and everything. I give it a quick name, right, multimodal agent data set. And then you can also, if you have it, you can also specify the ground truth on the platform. And then you just upload the data set, right? So very simple, very easy to get started, right? Again, I haven't even touched any code right now. I'm just trying to build out some prompts, build out the specific router steps for my agent. And the next one, which is kind of optional, is to actually add ground truth, right? So you can actually use Arize AX to add ground truth to your responses. So in the data set that you uploaded, if you actually don't have the ground truth, right, you can actually do it in the platform as well. Maybe you want your product manager to come in, right? Someone from your kind of business team or like some e-commerce expert to come in and actually annotate these responses. So you can also do this as an optional step. In the first data set I uploaded, I already had ground truth, but wanted to show it here. And now, this is kind of where the fun part begins, where by using the data set you uploaded, you actually start building your prompt, right? So Arize AX has this prompt playground where you can easily just, in a matter of minutes, write this prompt. Like you basically say, you're a retail router, given a user query and images, like pick the right path, right? And then you basically give all the specific paths the agent can take, right? So right now, I'm actually testing this on one specific example, right? I haven't even touched my data set. What I'm doing right now is I'm defining my image variables, image A and image B. And then once this is done, I can actually like test with a specific user query. Like I think in this case, like it says my gift hamper isn't here. and then I give like an image of like some Amazon delivery, and then some mailbox like saying that the gift hamper isn't here, like very typical workflow. And then I run it on the playground and actually get a response, right? So if you actually go into the last second here, you actually see that right here, the output gets generated. So it actually says like it needs to track the package, right? Package tracking issues, right? So I literally just built a prompt in a few minutes, right, on one example. And the next step is like you can actually run this prompt on top of your data set, right? So now that I actually have run this on one example, I kind of like this prompt, right? I'm going to upload my data set for all the user queries and images, and I'm actually going to run this prompt on top of my data set. So now I actually have the ability to actually have or test with different prompts across a full data set. And now you can see that now it actually ran it on a bunch of examples where I have like the final pick of which route to take, right? So again, like I'm kind of getting started. I'm kind of having an idea of like, okay, now I actually have the ability to run this prompt. But what is the main problem here? I can run this on my data set, but how do I actually quantify which prompt is better? How do I quantify which model is better? How do I make very quick decisions about my agent, right? So then what we do is we actually create an evaluator, right? So Arize has this ability where you can actually create the different kinds of evaluations on top of your prompts. And in this case, I'm going to leverage an LLM-as-a-Judge eval and a Python code eval, right? So I'm going to actually just build a very quick router correctness eval, right? We already have like an agent tool calling eval that we can use. So I'm just going to get that here where it basically says, given a user query, right, pick which route to take. So LLM-as-a-Judge making the decisions here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm also going to add a Python code evaluator that's going to check how close the output is to the ground truth, right? So there's a ground truth check, and there's an LLM-as-a-Judge eval for router correctness. You can use one of them, or you can do both. Like, I honestly don't have the best practice here, but if you do have a ground truth, obviously it's much better to actually do some similarity check with the ground truth itself, right? But now that I actually have the evaluator in place, whenever I run this on top of my data set, you can see that everything gets evaluated automatically, right? So again, if I focus on the last second here, so right here at the end, it actually shows that like this gets evaluated, right? So now it actually said like, let's say ground truth check, values match, right? So it was actually matching the ground truth. So now I'm actually at a place where I can run any prompt, any model I want on any data set, and then I can easily iterate on them and see which one is good or bad, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. This is the part where I'm going to do some like rapid prototyping. I want to do some A/B testing. I have my user query, my set of images, right? So now I can just add a B scenario. I can change my prompt, right? So let's say I put a version 2 where I actually describe the path, like what actually it does, right? Or maybe I want to try a different model, right? Maybe I have some money to spend and I'm going to use O1, right? So to use a reasoning model. And I can actually run all those A, B, C scenarios on top of my data set, and then all the outputs will happen, and as soon as the output gets completed, all the evaluations will start running, right? So that you would be able to see, is the ground truth check working? Is the router correct or not, right? So right now, the router correctness got completed for the scenario B, scenario C, and then scenario A will get completed in a few seconds as well, right? So this now gives me the ability to do very quick iterations and make very quick decisions. And after this point, what's going to happen is I can actually observe all my experiments and make a decision, right? Now I try different prompts, I try different models, and everything that I run on the playground gets saved as an experiment. So I can actually do side-by-side comparison across all my experiments, and then decide like which one had the best correctness, which one had the best ground truth check, right? To kind of make a very quick decision, like which prompt to use, which model to use, right? Maybe you're trying some tool calls, which tool calls to use, right? So this gives you the ability to kind of do that rapid prototyping with a multimodal agent using Arize. So again, what do you do next, right? So we kind of finished the router part in a few minutes. Now you can repeat the same workflow for other steps of the agent. You can actually deep dive into the specific paths and then try to build out the prompts from there. Some additional agent evaluation and multimodal metrics that I kind of want to put out here. We kind of touched on router correctness only, But again, that's like a simple eval to get started. There's a lot of other metrics you can consider when you're building out agents or using some like multimodal image data. And some of them is like agent parameter extraction, agent planning, reflection, trajectory. I really like the trajectory one. That is something we released as part of Observe, where like it actually picks like, did the agent follow the right path, right? It's not only picking a right path, but it actually evaluates the full path of the agent, right? You can also have the agent reflect on itself to kind of make a decision from there. And then you have stuff like image quality and image relevancy. So by having all these metrics in place and by having like some platform like Arize where you can do this like quick experimentation, it can really kind of like make sure that like you basically do very fast iteration, right? It's not slow anymore. You can try out any prompt, any change you want, and in a matter of minutes, you can find out like which one is the best decision to make for your agent. So that's it from me. Hope that was helpful, but thank you so much.